Hello and welcome back to the Craft Beer Corner. On today's episode, we're going to be doing another two-part sampler pack series here. So this will be part one. This is the Oskar Blues Cannundrum mixed sampler pack. It's out right now and it comes in cans. Might also come in bottles, but I got the canned version. It's got 15 beers in the pack, and it is 5 different styles and 3 of each. So a lot of variety. Presume it's going to be pretty good bang for the buck. It's always nice getting 15 or even 18 sometimes these days in lieu of just 12 cans in your case of beer. I'll pay a few extra bucks to get a few extra cans. That's always positive in my book. But for part one, we're going to be starting with the Oskar Blues Pinner. This is an IPA, which really is a session IPA. It's a lower ABV, 4.9%, which is quite low for an IPA. Second, we're going to be going to the Oskar Blues Can-O-Bliss. This is a tropical IPA, so probably has some tropical fruits in there. We'll explore and see what it tastes like. 7.2% on this one. And then we will wrap up with the Mama's Little Yella Pils, which is a Czech style Pilsner. This one clocks in at 4.7% ABV. So part one ought to be really fun. I'm ready to get jumped right in here. So we're going to start with the Pinner Session IPA. Okay, so for the very first beer on this part one of our two-part series, we're going to start with the Pinner IPA. This is a Session IPA. Clocks in at 4.9. On the can, it says Throwback IPA, so not sure what they mean by that. But that's quite all right. Let's go ahead and get this bad boy cracked open and get this poured into the glass. All right. Right now we're going to be a little more aggressive, so I can let that head form. Yeah. There we go. That's a nice looking pour. Out of the gate, it's got a nice golden hue to it, classic IPA color. It doesn't look like it's going to have any caramelly or heavily roasted malts, so I expect this to be pretty clean and steer clear of the caramel and toffee flavor profiles, but you never know. They could have an ace up their sleeve. Let's give it a sniff. Smells really nice. It smells quite floral and quite fruity. Just a twinge of pine, so I'm not really sure exactly what to expect from this one. It really comes down to their malt bill and what hops they put in here. Twinge of pine makes me think maybe it'll have some piney qualities, but it could have just been dry hopped at the end for the more floral, fruity, piney aromas, and maybe it's got a nice earthy hop character to it, but looking forward to finding out. Has a really nice classic IPA head, really light, foamy, silky smooth head on there, and that's not even too big to jump right in. I'm sure it's going to stick to my mustache, but let's jump in and see what this is about. Oh, that's a really nice beer. That's a really nice beer. That's very refreshing. That's super clean. That's my initial thoughts. Wow, that's refreshing. Wow, that's super clean. You know, it's a session IPA, so I knew it was going to be lighter, but I tell you, it doesn't taste like a watered down IPA at all. It's got some substance to it, and at 4.9, you know, you could have that extra IPA versus drinking a normal, which hovers in the 7% on average range. And that's a big high ABV beer. This is really not that high of an ABV, considering that it's a good IPA and it's craft. It's proper beer. This is really nice. The overall flavor that struck me was actually kind of an earthy hop and well-balanced nature through it. I didn't get hit with a lot of fruit or pine, just a twinge on the front, but it finished off with a nice clean, kind of earthy hop quality that let a little pack of bitters finish off at the end. I'm going to have another sip and think on it. That's good beer. Yeah, that's hard to beat. Yeah, that's super clean. I'll tell you, there are elements of this that, even though it's an IPA, it actually does put me in mind of maybe a Czech or German style Pilsner. Just that super light body, super smooth mouthfeel, nice clean finish, nothing overpowering. It's all in beautiful balance, and still has a nice little hop kick. It really does remind me a lot of a German or Czech style Pilsner, and that's no shame on this, session IPA or not. That's high praise. It's one of my absolute favorite styles of beer. Even though I'm drinking an IPA, those German and Czech Pilsners tend to be a lot more heavily hopped. They just are. And this has a similar ABV to what you would find. And since they made a session IPA here, it's got that nice hop quality. That's what it reminds me of. So that's high praise. I'll be interested to see how this actually does compare to their similar ABV, the third beer here, Mama's Yella Pils, the Czech style Pilsner, just to see what difference it is in their malt bill and what the hops they threw in and how it totally changes the style of beer. But this is a very, very good session IPA. I can highly recommend this one. I am a big fan of session IPAs because I am a massive hop head, and sometimes you want that extra beer, but the ABV is just too much. You got to cut yourself off. But with this session, I don't feel that guilty about it. It's got 50% less ABV, so if you're having a couple, go ahead, grab the third. Who cares? Really good beer. We'll come back and give this the full review at the end, but for now, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, for the second beer in this list we're doing in part one, we're going to move on to the Mama's Little Yella Pils. This is a Czech style Pilsner, clocks in at 4.7% ABV. So let's go ahead and get this bad mammy jamby cracked. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. I said bad mammy jamby. And we're going to get this poured right in the glass. Slowly for roughly the first half. Then we're going to go straight down the middle with a little more agitation. That might be a bit much agitation. See, guys, I don't profess to be an expert beer pourer here. Lord knows I'm not. As is evidenced by this ridiculously massive head on this Pilsner. But that's okay. We'll still get to enjoy a delicious beer here momentarily. All right. So, the ridiculous height of the head aside, which is obviously way too imposing, you can see this looks like a classic Pilsner, a beautiful golden yellow, very tight, small, tiny bubbles just floating around in there. Their little stream pouring out of here. The head, aside from the fact that I poured it ridiculously poorly, is a classic Pilsner head. It is a nice, light, foamy, almost kind of marshmallow fluff in its quality. A really tightly packed, formed head here. And it smells like a classic Czech Pilsner. I suspect that we're going to be in for a treat with this one. I'm just going to use the old trick, get a little oil from my person. I've done this in a prior episode. I know some people find it gross, but it's my own oil, it's my own beer. If you accidentally pour a little overzealously, this is how you can get the head to dissipate more quickly so you can enjoy the beer quicker. The bubbles don't like the oil from your person. So you give it just a minute, it'll really start to settle down, which is okay. As these are popping, it's going to give me a good opportunity to get another sniff in here. Yeah, honestly, it smells like a classic Czech Pilsner or German Pilsner. If I didn't know that this came from an Oskar Blues can, I would suspect strongly that this were a European, German, or Czech Pilsner. It smells just like it. It smells like a classic German or Czech Pils. This is brewed in the Czech style. There is a slight difference. But yeah, you can see already, look how much that head has gone down in not even a minute yet. So it's probably close enough I can go ahead and have a sip and see what this is about. Oh, I am really, really pleased with this one. This is very pleasantly surprising. Honestly, if you blindfolded me and put any of my absolute favorite Pilsners in the world, all of which are Czech or German, and put this in the lineup, I would not be able to distinguish it. And that is absolute high praise for Oskar Blues. Mama's Little Yella Pils, Czech style Pilsner at 4.7. This is a home run. If you like a proper Pilsner, this is exactly what you're looking for. I cannot emphasize that enough. Out of the gate, it's the right color. It's got the right head consistency. Have another sip here. I can't even help myself. It's got a nice body to it. Proper Pilsners are not like big brand American adjunct Pilsner nonsense. They actually do have a body to them. They have a mouthfeel to them. This is, this is almost a perfect example of the style, honestly. I don't have anything negative I can say about this. The flavor profile is exactly right. The hop choice is exactly right. The malt bill is exactly right. I mean, this is just darn good beer. Don't want to use more offensive language. Darn good beer, folks. Fantastic. Honestly, this is just fantastic. I could just down this thing. Pilsners, the perfect quintessential hot summer day style, and this is it. I mean, that is just classic Czech Pilsner. And it's got such a fantastic classic Pilsner finish, and the hops really come through. Pilsners do have a hot bite to them, Czech and German. They're the ones that invented the style. They ought to know how it's done. This is what you want, honestly. I'll come back for the full review at the end, but man, I'm blown away by that. That is just amazing beer. I highly, highly recommend this if you're a fan of Pilsners. Next, we're going to be moving on to the Can-O-Bliss, which is the tropical IPA, and we'll get that sampling coming up next. Okay, for our final beer of part one of our Oskar Blues Cannundrum sampler pack review here, we're going to be moving on to our third beer, which is the Can-O-Bliss. This is an IPA which they have declared a tropical IPA. This clocks in at 7.2% ABV. Let's go ahead and get this bad boy cracked. Yeah, there it is. Is there a more beautiful sound in the world? I'm not sure there is. Let's get this cracked and get this poured into the glass. All right. Now the last one I poured a bit too much head, so I'm going to be a bit more gentle on the initial pour. And then I'm going to go down the middle, not too rough, just enough to let that head form. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah. That looks proper. Brilliant. Brilliant. See, it can be done. I can learn. Wow. This is a busy, busy, busy beer. Look at all of the bubbles. I don't know if you can see that in the camera or not, but wow. This is properly effervescent. That is a lot of carbonation in there. Let's give it a sniff. Yeah, that smells quite nice. I see where they're getting the tropical from in the name. That smells very tropical fruity. I'm not really sure what to expect. I don't know what fruit they may have used in the brewing process, but it does smell quite nice indeed. The head formed perfectly. I mean, it's a classic IPA head again. Very tight, silky, fluffy head on there. That's exactly what you expect. I'm going to go ahead and give this a sip. The head's maybe a little higher than I'd usually jump right in, but I'm going to do it. May as well live a little. Golly, that really smells great. Yeah, I just said golly. That's right. Gee willikers, that's delicious. No, seriously, all kidding aside, that really is a delicious beer. I could tell you the overarching flavor that comes through is indeed that tropical fruit. 7.2 and an IPA. It's clearly got a lot of fermentables in it. It's got a nice body. It's got a nice mouthfeel to it, but the bitters are kind of secondary in this one to the fruit with which it's been brewed. They're in there. They're in there. Um, the bitter profile of this IPA is clearly a very nice earthy, maybe some fruity hops in there. There's a little bit of funk. I almost wonder if maybe they put some Simcoe in there in the back, which can oftentimes impart a bit of a pine and a resinous, but I'm not getting that. I'm getting a bit of funk. Possibly they hop it really heavily and it starts imparting that. Wow, you've got a lot of hops in this beer, funk, which is just fine by me. I have no problem with that. I like all the varying characteristics that hops can impart on the beer. The aroma, the flavor, you know, it's just adds so many different elements. But this is really nice. Trying to pinpoint without knowing what's in this. Perhaps a more bitter fruit. You know, it could be interplay with the hops, but it's got what tastes like some kind of citrus, possibly orange, maybe some mango, maybe some papaya in there. It would be very obscure, but maybe even kiwi. It's got something interesting in there I can't quite put my finger on, but it definitely tastes tropical. This is a very nice beer. It's got a good mouthfeel. I mean, look at that head and that head retention. That has just held this whole time. I mean, that's picture perfect. Can't beat that. It's a really nice IPA. If you don't like quite as hop forward of IPAs, this would be a really good one to explore. Especially if you like the lighter, fruitier, if you're into the whole New England IPA craze with their fruity juiciness. You know, I'm not a hater of the style. I just think it's overdone and it's kind of gotten a little out of control, but I understand why people can appreciate it. As a hophead, the biggest aspect of the hop that I enjoy the most is the bitters, and I just don't get it from the New England style. This, you know, it's got a hint of a haze to it. I wouldn't say it's a New England style. I think it's appropriately classified just as an IPA, but maybe tropical, because it's got the fruit in there, and it definitely comes through. It came probably precisely how they intended with the tropical IPA. It's very nice. It's very fruity, high ABV, but even though it's got a nice body to it and a nice mouthfeel, it's not heavy. It's a really good beer. I do enjoy this one. We will come back and get the final reviews on all three here. And in the interim, I'm going to finish enjoying this delicious beer. We'll see you back. Okay, now that we have sampled all three of the beers in our part one of the Oskar Blues Cannundrum sampler series here, we're going to go through and give the final ratings. Starting with the Pinner, this was basically a session IPA, but it's essentially session, 4.9% ABV. This was a really good example. I really enjoyed all of them. This one was nice. Aroma 8 out of 10. This had one of the better, more pronounced aromas of a session I've experienced to date. I really enjoyed it. 8 out of 10, well deserved. Taste 7 out of 10, well above average. The body was, you know, even for the style, it was okay. I've had more full, substantial session IPAs, so just kind of mid-range average. I gave it a 6 out of 10 there. The mouthfeel was nice, above average, 7 out of 10. The finish too, it was nice for a session IPA, 7 out of 10. The head retention was really excellent for an IPA or session at all. I gave it a 9 out of 10, almost perfect. The appearance was lovely. This was well above average, kind of what you would expect. I've had a few that appearance-wise just struck me a little more, but this was nice. 8 out of 10, well deserved. Balance, it was a very well-balanced beer. Above average, 7 out of 10. The feeling in the intangible category, this is my subjective category. I give it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it, and I was thinking really deeply about other session IPAs, what makes a great session, and this one is clearly in the top tier. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Finally, as an example of the style, again, above average, 8 out of 10. That brings the final score on Pinner. up to a 75 out of 100, well above average. This is a great beer. If you're into IPAs, session IPAs, this is one to seek out. It's definitely worth your time. Moving on to number 2, this was the Mama's Little Yellow Pils, a Czech style Pilsner, clocked in at 4.7% ABV. This one was the hero of the day. I was absolutely blown away by how fantastic this beer was. And I stated it prior during the review while I was experiencing it, but honestly, if I did not know that this were an American craft brewer that did a Czech style Pilsner, and you had blindfolded me, put it in a lineup, I would have sworn it were a Czech or German style Pils. It is that indicative of the style, just unbelievably good. Aroma 9 out of 10, almost perfection. Taste, same thing, 9 out of 10, almost perfection. The body, well above average, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Mouthfeel, same thing, well above average, 8 out of 10. Finish was almost perfect. I mean, just perfect classic Czech Pilsner style. Gave it a 9 out of 10. Head and retention, I mean, you can't get that much better. So it was right on the precipice of perfect, 9 out of 10. The appearance, this is where I gave it a solid 10. I mean, it was just classic. It looked like a classic Czech Pilsner. I mean, they couldn't have replicated it better for the style. A balanced, stupidly well balanced, 9 out of 10. The feeling in the intangible category, as you probably realized while I was experiencing it, I was blown away by this beer. Considering this is an American interpretation of a Czech style Pilsner, they nailed it. 10 out of 10. Finally, example out of the style, 9 out of 10. I really think the only way to possibly do much better is to have a proper Czech style Pilsner. That brings the grand total up to a 90 out of 100. Really, really strongly well above average. This is one to seek out if you're into Pilsners in general, or Czech, or even German, because they're very similarly related. I highly, highly, highly recommend this beer. You will not regret your decision. Fantastic. Finally, our final beer here on the list was the Can-O-Bliss. This is an IPA. They term it a tropical IPA, which was very readily apparent once you got into it. Tropical fruit in abundance. 7.2%, higher ABV beer here. The aroma was great. It gave you a really good sense of what you were going to experience, and the fruit really came through. 8 out of 10. The taste, same thing, well above average, 8 out of 10. The body, actually, considering how high of an ABV and how many fermentables were in it, I was a little underwhelmed by the body, but still higher end of average. I gave it a 6 out of 10. The mouthfeel, above average, 7 out of 10 there. The finish was nice, rather what I expected considering, but it was above average, 7 out of 10. The head and retention on this one was perfect. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better head and retention of that head for the entire time I was enjoying this beer. It stuck with it, a nice beautiful head like you'd want on an IPA, 10 out of 10. The appearance on this one, this was a lovely beer. You could tell that it had tropical fruit in there. Just a lovely looking beer, your classic IPA. Give it a 9 out of 10. The balance on this was quite nice. The balance between the malt and the hops and the fruit that they put in there was well above average. I gave it a 7 out of 10. The feeling in the intangible category, my subjective thoughts on it, 7 out of 10, above average. Finally, as an example of the style, I've had many IPAs of all different kinds. I am a hophead. I mean, we're talking hundreds I've had. This is still cleanly above average. I gave it a 7 out of 10 there. That brings the final score on Can-O-Bliss up to a 76. So that's our final rankings, 75, 90, 76. All of these well above average to exceptional. I think all of these are worth seeking out. If you can find the Oskar Blues Cannundrum sampler pack in your area, it's worth seeking out. You get 15 beers in the case. There's 5 different styles and you get 3 of each. So, I mean, there's something for everybody in here. I really enjoyed making this one. I'm looking very forward to wrapping up part 2, which is just going to have the final 2 beers. My videos tend to run a little long. I try to be in depth, give you as much information and my honest feedback that I can. And I appreciate that. Nobody wants to sit through a 30, 45-minute YouTube video. But I do appreciate you joining in. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you found some value in this and maybe found it mildly entertaining at least. I do appreciate all of you tuning in. Please, if you like this content and you'd like to get more like this, we have much more to come. Plenty of beer reviews, and we're going to expand into many different types of videos as well in the very near future here. Going to do beer and food pairings. We're going to be doing home brewing equipment reviews, home brewing recipes, kind of walkthrough tutorials. We've got a lot up our sleeves. There's a lot to come. Very excited about what the future has in store. I do appreciate everybody tuning in. Please, we are a growing channel. If you like this and you want to stay in the loop for all the outcoming videos, please like and subscribe. Leave comments down below if you have ideas, suggestions, just general feedback. I would love to hear it, especially while we're growing and our audience base is going to be smaller. I will do my absolute best to respond to as many comments as I can because I do have a little time. And I am keenly interested in your thoughts and what you like, what you don't like, and I am happy to take suggestions and take popular majority for specific episodes you'd like to see. If there's specific reviews or anything else you'd like me to go over, or even just further research on some of the beers I've already done, happy to do so. I am here for you, and I'm loving it, and I'm glad you're all here. As always, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.